Religion, a particular system of faith and worship. As of 2014, there are an estimated 4,200 different religions in the world, some of them being Christianity, with approximately 2 billion followers, Islam, with 1.3 billion followers, Hinduism, with 900 million followers, and Judaism, with 14 million followers.
From religion, people are able to draw security, strength, optimism, and guidance concerning the trials and tribulations of their lives. Though it is a person's fundamental right to practice their own beliefs, many religions are still not widely accepted.
This lack of acceptance or intolerance often results in disunity and bigotry towards those who practice a religion and even those who don't. Overall, religious intolerance is detrimental for society because it promotes ignorance, causes discrimination, and encourages violence and aggression.
Ignorance.
Ignorance of the various religions people follow today is a major cause of religious intolerance. Having knowledge of religions around the world is powerful and can allow you to be more successful, especially if your job requires interacting with people. According to John Becker, if you're a businessman and you want to do business with China but don't know anything about Confucianism, it's not going to work for you. If you're a medical doctor that has prescribed pills to a Muslim observing Ramadan, you better know something about their religious rituals as well. In the Crucible, the Puritans had an extremely narrow interpretation of the Bible. Passages that were meant as metaphors were taken too literally. They used the scripture to justify their self-interests and resolve arguments with one another. They also used the fear of scripture to control and intimidate each other. Reverend Parris was especially good at this. Ignorance in the book won in the end when John Proctor was hanged for no reason. Ignorance led to pride, which eventually resulted in the hangings of innocent individuals and a corrupt society. Religion has a private and public power, and to make the most of this power, we need to inform ourselves of the different religious beliefs around the world. With ignorance, many will continue to believe that Muslim women are denied their human rights and all Mormons are polygamists. Poverty is also a leading cause of ignorance, which as a result leads to religious intolerance. In Pakistan, individuals of Christian faith are serving time in prison for having offended Islam. This was the consequence of blasphemy, but they are even more of a consequence of widespread ignorance. Most people accused of blasphemy are extremely poor and therefore targets of those with the intention to promote hate and division between religious communities. Intolerance in this case was caused by a lack of education on both sides. The Christians lived in poverty and participated in the act of blasphemy, which offended Muslims. However, without knowledge of other religions, Muslims believed that the Christians were attempting to spread negativity and attack Islam, and resorted to locking them up instead of educating them. Ignorance can cause religions to be intolerant of other religions, especially when one side believes that their way is the only way and refuse to accept that everyone has different values and faiths. To get rid of religious intolerance, it is necessary to first eradicate ignorance and poverty around the world.
We wanted to find out about people in our community's experience with religious intolerance, so we interviewed a couple of people with varying religious backgrounds to find out.
Are there any misconceptions tied to your religion? If so, what are they and how could they be fixed?
There are many misconceptions tied to Islam. The main reason is because of lack of education. Most Americans know very little about Islam. And they may hear something in the press or something that some racists may say, and so therefore they think that is Islam.
Yes, the answer to that will be yes, because it's a basic human tendency. When we perceive the other of any identity, whether it is the religious identity or it is the linguistic identity or it is national identity, or in the case of Hindus, the caste identity, the other is always perceived as inferior to oneself.
And Americans, to a large extent, haven't taken the time to learn about other religions other than Christianity. So if, in fact, they knew about the religion, then they wouldn't have that kind of misconception.
Discrimination, the unjust or prejudicial treatment of different categories of people or things, has often been a direct result of religious intolerance, which can range anywhere from harassment to complete segregation. Religious intolerance divides and isolates, which can result in the discrimination of those who are specifically targeted because of their beliefs. This type of religious discrimination has even occurred on a national level. On January 27, 2017, President Donald J. Trump signed an executive order suspending the entry of citizens from 7 Muslim-majority nations into the United States for at least 90 days. Though the order was ultimately blocked by a federal appeals court, this act was a clear example of discrimination. Trump claimed that the order was meant to keep out all radical Islamic terrorists, but the order really attempted to tie the crimes of a few select individuals to an entire religion. Another popular example of religious discrimination would be Adolf Hitler's treatment of Jewish people. Hitler had a vision of what characteristics a perfect human being should possess, and being Jewish was not one of them. He forced Jewish people to wear a yellow Star of David at all times so that they could be easily identified. This ostracization of Jews is just one example of how discrimination can develop as a result of religious intolerance. Religious discrimination has openly marked religious people as being different or as being inferior to those around them. Discrimination can also further exacerbate the pre-existing stereotypes associated with religious groups. As long as discrimination is a factor, most religious misconceptions can never be dispelled. Considering how Hitler's intolerance and perpetual discrimination of Jews directly caused the death of approximately 6 million people, it is evident that religious discrimination can profoundly impact a person's life.
Do you think where you live is more tolerant of religions compared to other places?
Yes, I do think that the United States of America is much more tolerant than many, many other places in the world. People are fighting on the name of religion, one person fighting the other person, one community fighting the other community.
And no, I do not. I've had the privilege of traveling extensively, such as Singapore, which is only about 15 to 16% Muslim, but yet and still Muslims are very highly respected there, quite different from here in America. And people are judged as the way they are, the kind of people they are, judged upon their piety, judged upon the kind of person they are, and how they are treated and how they treat others. Whereas in America, as you see what's going on now, Muslims are selected as terrorists and many other things. And so America has not learned yet to be accepting of Islam as they've been have accepted Judaism and accepted Christianity.
I come from India. I have seen that in India. This is happening daily in another country nearby Pakistan. Then there is all over the world. There are people who are in the name of religion trying to fight with each other. Everybody is trying to say my religion is better than the other one. In America also there may be some people who might be raising such voices. But overall, in general, we do not see any cause of great concern that that kind of enmity among the people will be there.
From almost all of human history, there have been various acts of religious persecution, religious holy wars, and religiously motivated acts of violence. The Crusades describes the multiple religious wars and fights that were fought between Muslims and Christians from the year 1095 to 1303. These wars were due to the religious disputes and controls over land in Jerusalem. The main motivation was religious, to recover the Holy Land from the infidel Muslims, to go in pilgrimage to the holy places of Palestine, and to gain the remission of suffering in the purgatory that was promised to Crusaders. The fighting eventually came to an end after nearly 1.7 million civilians died and the control of that land was given to the Christians. Fast forward to 1915. The Ku Klux Klan reemerges on a national level with over 4 million members, preaching anti-Semitism and anti-Catholicism. The KKK attempted to rule the South through violence by burning crosses and holding parades and marches denouncing Catholics, Jews, and any non-white Christian group. Even now, people continue to use violence and aggression in the name of religion. ISIL, also known as ISIS, is a theocracy that follows an extremist interpretation of Islam, promotes religious violence, and regards Muslims who do not agree with its interpretation as infidels or apostates. One major aspect of most religions is that, generally in one's faith, there are believers and there are non-believers. This is similar to the concept of good versus evil, and is often misused by numerous religious groups in order to distinguish between who can be accepted and who cannot. This attitude is a direct result of religious intolerance. Religious intolerance is not just an ideology that religious people practice, but it is something even non-religious people can be involved in. Groups can form and become violent and or aggressive, and not just to other religions, but even to those beliefs who have changed or those who simply don't practice. Religious wars like the Crusades and groups like the KKK and ISIS are able to justify their hostility by using religion, by stating that the reason for such actions is to promote peace and preserve their religion. They feel like they must do whatever is necessary in order to push their agenda, even if that means harming or killing others. Are there solutions to religious intolerance?
There are many wrong notions about Hinduism, and the best way to eradicate them would be to meet a Hindu, go to a Hindu place, as both of you have done, and try to understand our point of view, and vice versa. We try to understand your religion, your point of view, and about any identity, whether it is religious or it is linguistic or it is national, whatever.
We as Muslims are partly at fault, that we should make an effort to do what we call dawah, meaning that we should go out, talk to people about the religion, educate them, send information to them, and go into the schools and the colleges and other places to explain to them and to educate people what Islam really is. It's a religion of peace.
By encouraging ignorance, growing discrimination, and precipitating violence and aggression, religious intolerance negatively impacts our society. With all the violence happening overseas because of religion-related conflict, it may be easy to believe that intolerance is a problem that we do not have to deal with, but this is very far from the truth.
Religious intolerance is a problem that plagues not only our local community, but almost every single community around the world. People who practice religion have been targeted at their schools, jobs, and homes. They have been ridiculed, harassed, tortured, and even killed, all because they choose to exercise one of their fundamental human rights and practice their religion. Though personally, we may have never encountered an experience in which the religion we practice or the religion we don't was not tolerated, the simple fact of the matter is that injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere.
We as a community have to take strides to address the problems that individuals around the world face. One way we can begin to seek out religious justice and acceptance for all is through education. By educating others about the various religions worldwide, more people will learn to accept the faith of others, which will consequently slow the discrimination and violence that is tied to religious intolerance. Rectifying the ongoing disputes between religions or lack of thereof is certainly not guaranteed, but if the right steps are taken, religious intolerance will no longer be detrimental to society.